Hello, and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the supernatural podcast where I get to talk about my gay awakening courtesy of one particular angel this week.
Today, we are pulling up to season 4 with episode 10, Heaven and Hell.
I am Abigail, one of your hosts, and my pronouns are they, them.
I'm Noah. My pronouns are he, him.
I'm Elayna. My pronouns are she, they.
And I'm Renny. My pronouns are she, her.
Woohoo! Returning guest star Renny.
Yay, Renny.
Fan favorite.
Welcome back again for your season 4 episode.
Yes.
We're so happy to have
One
you.
per season.
We have to have you at least once per season.
At least. My question for y'all today is, what would you do if you found out that you were secretly an angel deep undercover for who knows how long, and everything you thought you knew about your life was a lie?
So what would I do before or after the mental breakdown?
Well, okay, yeah, fair enough. Let's skip to after. So you have a mental breakdown.
After, okay.
You have some outbursts.
Get some therapy.
You've come to grips with the idea.
Yeah, you've come to terms.
I would fly everywhere. I would just go on trips to everywhere in the world. I would just be like, "Oop, I'm just gonna fly to Paris because I'm bored."
So does that mean you're finding your grace?
Sure.
Becoming an angel again?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Fair. I hadn't considered that. Yeah, she doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you would have to find your grace and then turn your back on
Humanity.
Oh, well, that makes me sound like a terrible person.
and heaven's responsibilities and whatnot. You're just gonna do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
That sounds like a good
Sounds like
plan.
a great time.
Hey, I can't blame you. That's probably what I'd do.
What would y'all do so that I don't sound as much like a terrible person?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't know. It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, finding your grace seems like the way to go. I feel like otherwise knowing all of the stuff that you would know about being an angel, but not having any of those abilities would be real rough.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of what I would do. See, if it's this specifically apocalyptic scenario, like if everything else in this is true, if you're like actually in the place of Anna, I think you run far away and you don't look back. You're like, guess what? I have a new identity now. I'm going to make good use of that and move to
Go off to become
London.
a cottagecore lesbian.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that.
Woods.
I'm going to do that. That's what I do.
Hell yeah.
I respect that.
I actually think I would want to stay human.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of, I'm kind of with Anna in this episode of like, it sucks to just be on the outside of everything all the time and be given orders and not know like why. Like I wouldn't want to be like, have to, blindly follow orders and like,
Yeah.
We're about free will on this podcast.
yeah, exactly. But you're right. It would suck to know everything about angels and not have any powers and just be like stuck.
I'd be like, can I have the powers back, but also not work with heaven because they seem like giant dicks.
Yeah. Yeah, I should clarify. I would get my powers back and then I would fuck off to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Move yourself across the globe.
Would promptly GTFO.
Which does seem kind of difficult to do once you have your grace, because then they can probably find you.
Mm-hmm.
So actually not taking your grace back, like the better.
They could
But
find
then
her.
you have to listen to angel radio all the time.
Yeah, and they still found her.
That's
Yeah.
So
You're right.
might as well be able to fight back.
True.
true.
It's a good question.
Yeah. With no good answers, as evidenced by Anna in this episode.
Now that you've met all your hosts, it's time to catch you up. If you haven't watched Supernatural recently, here's what you've missed on the road so far. First up, Elayna is going to recap the season in general. Elayna, are you ready?
I have my notes.
Fantastic.
That's all I'm gonna say. I have my notes. We'll see where it goes and which ones I actually mentioned.
You ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Dean comes back from hell and Sam is up to like really sketchy like power stuff with Ruby that he shouldn't be. And they end up having like a consensual workplace relationship. And then they go back in time and then there's stuff with angels. There's this guy named Cass who shows up and he is like likes to stare at Dean a lot. And Sam has his whole like, oh no, am I a monster? And he's not, but he is. And Dean gets ghost sickness and then they stop Sam Hain and become teddy bear doctors.
Well done.
I did that completely out of order.
It was good. It was good.
A great recap. Renny and I both did have to
saw-
hold back our laughter at that consensual workplace relationship joke.
I had to do it. I had to. As I was sitting here jotting stuff down, I was like, wait, I have to point this out.
Noah and I made that joke in our last episode, Elayna, when you
Not
were
even.
there. Noah and I made that joke in that episode. So
Yep, they had a consensual workplace relationship. Good for them. A consensual workplace relationship that was sustainably sourced.
Oof.
The implications. Anyway, so now Renny is going to take us into the recap for this week's episode. Renny, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm gonna count you in. 3, 2, 1, go.
Sam and Dean are fighting Cass and Uriel for Anna. Pam comes and helps Anna remember that she's an angel and that she fell to earth and became human. Dean and Anna have a heart-to-heart. Sam finds Anna's grace and they go look for it, but it was taken. Both demons and angels are looking for Anna. Anna and Dean have another heart-to-heart and have sex. The gang, quote, give Anna up to make the demons and angels fight each other for her. Anna gets her grace back and becomes an angel. Dean finally tells Sam what happened in hell.
With time to spare.
Renny, why are your summaries always so exemplary?
Because I write them while I'm watching the episode.
Fantastic.
Every 3 minutes you hit pause and say, what happened there?
Yeah, I have no notes, none.
Yeah, thorough. And
Expedient.
now that we're all caught up, let's pick a few tracks to carry us on our journey into this episode. What is everyone's mixtape suggestions this week?
So I went with anytime there's like a really angsty episode, my brain just immediately goes, what's the Linkin Park song for this? And this week I decided it was Numb by Linkin Park, because that just to me very much embodies where Dean is at the end of this episode. You know, become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this. All I want to do is be more like me and less like you. Ugh, hit me in the guts.
That works.
Well, I definitely picked my song from Dean's feelings at the end of this episode, because how could you not? The emotional centerpiece. I picked Woke Up in This Body by Arrested Youth, which is a little on the nose with how Dean came back. And the main chorus is how I used to be a little kid, then I just woke up in this body. Life used to be so simple before, when I was a kid. Everything was simple. And now here I am. I have to find ways to walk towards the light by noon. Otherwise, I lose focus. It's a deep feeling for Dean this episode. He went through hell.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Those are solid. This is not going to be a happy set of mixtape songs.
No.
And I'm going to add mine to the list. I'm going with Human by Daughter. Also for some similar reasons. The idea of, underneath the skin, there's a human, buried deep within, there's a human. Despite everything, I'm still human, but I think I'm dying here.
Oh, sweet baby Dean.
But also Anna, the wrestling with what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be human with all of the pain you experience as a human being the only way that you also get to experience anything good as a human. And that sort of like tension for Anna, and that tension that's also bringing up for Dean, that we're going to talk about a bunch, but that's my rationale for that song.
I went the Dean and Anna route rather than the Dean at the end of the episode route. And it's still a sad song. Don't worry. It's Jealous by Labyrinth. The chorus is, I wished you the best of all this world could give. And I told you when you left me, there's nothing to forgive. But I always thought you'd come back, tell me all you found was heartbreak and misery. It just reminded me of their conversation that they have. Like, he's saying, like, I don't want to feel anything. That sounds really nice to be like numb and, not have to deal with anything. And she's like, yeah, but free will. Yeah. So their relationship.
Good stuff.
Yeah, good picks all around.
Now that we've got our mixtape playing, let's get this show on the road with today's episode, Heaven and Hell, through the theme of our favorite, faith.
We are coming back to this theme. It's
I'm ready.
in this theme.
So excited.
I legitimately want to do this theme like every season, because I think there's new stuff that gets added every season.
And this is a good pick.
Very much so. Basically, it's at its essence challenging every aspect of Dean's faith that he's been flouting the whole first 3 seasons. Now he's just, okay, not only are angels very real, but they can have sex. So like
That is such an interesting take, Noah.
sorry, He's come so far.
I'd not thought about that specifically connecting to Dean's faith, but you know what? We're
Going
gonna
from
because him and Cass are having some interesting dynamics so far this season, and this is, he's had a moment now where now he knows.
Mhm.
yeah, I think he can confirm that angels are very real.
Anyway,
Someone want
Good
to take
times.
me into an actual another thought from there. I want to just point out the list that Dean and Anna go back and forth on in that conversation. I think the things that are in that list are all things that people, I think, often put faith in a lot of ways. Like there's loyalty, forgiveness, love, pain, chocolate cake, guilt, sex. Like those are all of the things that's the list, which I think is so interesting because they're kind of catching everything of like both the like sensory, physical things that humans are like drawn to, but also, forgiveness, guilt, and love and loyalty all being in that list, like some of the primary emotions that we have about other people and whether or not we can have faith in other people. Like these are all things that we like make meaning in. And like when I think about faith, so much of what I think about is like faith and meaning being really connected. Like what we have faith in is often where we find our meaning and vice versa.
And like a lot of these emotions that are being described, at least, are like they're dependent on faith in a way. Like if you're gonna forgive someone, it's because I feel like you would have faith in them. If you love someone, you have faith in them. If you're in pain, it's because that faith has been betrayed in some way. Each of these can come back to that.
Yeah, guilt is often if you think that you haven't lived out, someone has had faith in you or some ideal and you haven't lived up to it. Like, I think there's connections there too.
This conversation also struck me about Dean not having faith in humanity anymore. Like he's so jaded and pain, and we don't know why yet during this conversation. Like we don't know the depth of it, but yeah, he's lost his faith in humanity, and he's like, why would you give up being powerful and perfect? Like he has this, he's feeling really weak, he's feeling really messed up and like powerless
and uncertain.
Yeah.
One of the things he says to Anna, he's talking about like, I think there's the element of like security in how he's viewing the angels' faith in God. He's like, I think at the beginning of that conversation, he still thinks that like angels are really confident in that faith, that they don't have any doubt. And then Anna is kind of explaining, she's going, like we don't have choice. We only have obedience. We have to have faith, which we're killed if we don't have. And she talks about, waiting on orders from an unknowable father I can't begin to understand. And that like crux of that conversation for me of like, she is expressing that like faith in an unknowable father that she can't understand is like being forced to have that kind of faith isn't really faith at all. It's something else entirely. And it's, the taking away of her faith and the taking away of her free will. And that's why she makes the choice to fall.
Well, I think you already said it. It comes down to that's obedience is what that is. Like,
without choice, like it's brainwashing.
Yep.
Brainwashing, it's obligation.
Yeah.
By design, faith without choice is not faith.
Oh, put that on the t-shirt.
And I think it's interesting how that in that conversation, it gets contrasted with for Dean, like after Anna says that, he goes, he starts to laugh and goes like, I actually think I understand what you mean by that. And like Dean, through the first 3 seasons, has never expressed faith in God, but he does know what it's like to have faith in like a father figure in John, to have faith in like their mission as hunters, in like their lives having meaning because they like kill monsters.
In Bobby.
And the last 3 seasons have been like things ripping his faith apart and kind of going, that's not worth having faith in. Like John let him down.
Well, I think he comes to realize that what he had in John was not so much faith as it was fear, but like somebody like Bobby and Sam, like those are the people that he has genuine faith in. Those are the people that he believes in will always be there. I think he hopes that John will be there, but he doesn't always know that he will.
Well, I think John is that unknowable father he can't begin to understand.
Exactly.
That's where I think he finds that connection with Anna of like they've both had experiences of putting their faith in an unknowable father, and they've both been let down. And they've both had to choose other things to put their faith in. And it sounds like Anna has put her faith in like humanity and like being human and in like free will. And I think Dean is, like you said, Renny, trying to figure out what he can even have faith in, because he doesn't have much of that right now.
Yeah, and it's sad to see because like he's always believed in people. That's like where he usually puts his faith, and so to see him have lost that is really sad.
They also both, it struck me that both Dean and Anna have lost faith in themselves. She's talking about how she disobeyed like Lucifer, like she compares herself to Lucifer, which is like crazy for an angel to say that. So that really shows like the depth of like she doesn't like herself. I think she doesn't regret anything, but at the same time she doesn't, I don't know, it just seemed to me like she didn't have faith in herself. And then obviously Dean doesn't have faith in himself either. He's like a wreck. And because of the last scene, which he's
and like you don't think you deserve to be saved. That is tied into all of this. Cass said that to Dean right when he raised him. That comes up again in this episode. And even when you think about the final scene in this episode, that's where Dean's expressing why he doesn't think he deserves to be saved, because he thinks that the actions that he took to survive in hell mean that Sam shouldn't have faith in him anymore.
He doesn't feel he deserves that faith at this point.
Noah, you obviously, we talked about this a little bit in our previous episode in 409, but how was this experience for you of watching this episode for the first time, finding out Anna was an angel, finding out we find out so much stuff in this episode?
Yeah. Okay. It was quite the reveal. She seemed so innocent and kind and sweet last episode. And then now coming in this one, learning she's insanely powerful and still very nice and innocent and kind, but in a much different way. Like choosing to be that as an angel and choosing to fall to earth is fascinating. And she's Castiel's boss.
Yeah,
that's pretty dope. So a bit of a flex there.
Love that.
I'm curious as to what her real name is, if Anna is actually what she calls herself, or I don't know. I'm curious to see if we get more.
That's a good question, because Cass and Uriel call her Anna, but do they call her Anna because that's what like her mother called her when she was born? Or did like when she fell, like did something grace related make her parents go like, we've got to call her Anna, which happened to be her like angelic name?
It could, in either way, totally believable, but they don't really mention it. I really liked seeing Pamela again.
Yeah.
Honestly, as soon as they mentioned they were in Bobby's house, but he wasn't there, I immediately typed in my notes, Bobby's off with Pamela on a little vacation, helping her adjust to her new situation and all that. Then 5 minutes later, they went to go see Pamela. And I was like, oh, damn. I typed in, there's Pamela. I guess Bobby's hiding upstairs. What's going on?
Bobby, Pamela, truthing over here now.
Yep.
I love that for you.
Sadly not. I did really like Pamela's introduction as a Daredevil-esque figure, psychic too. Love it.
Yeah, I really appreciate like how they handle Pamela and let her have like these complex set of feelings about like she doesn't have faith in angels because they have screwed up her life, because they've taken something from her. And she is like, no, even if Anna's different, she's like, I don't trust angels. Like, and I appreciate
that's her right. Yeah.
Appreciate that she follows her gut on that one. And that that the Winchesters don't like, nobody pressures her to like stick around and be helpful. They're like, nope.
Fair enough.
They're not like, yeah. And she's also just so good at her job. Like she's so good at what she does.
Yeah.
When she's with Anna, like the compassion and the care she shows for Anna and like the way I love Pamela.
Me too.
She's wonderful.
Powerful ass character. I also liked Dean's line when they're talking about getting her grace back. He's like, what do you just take some heavenly bong rip and become Roma Downey? Which confirms Dean smokes.
Yes. Well established at this point.
We are also high Dean truthers.
Gotta.
Oh, also on, great lines in this episode, pretty buff for a nerd. Gotta be one of my favorites in the whole show.
So good.
Say what we will say about Ruby, but like she's got a wit that I really love. And I love that she's just like shamelessly flirting with Sam in front of everyone.
Later on in the car when he's like demon and an angel in the back seat. It's like the sit up to a bad joke. Powerful. Again, they've come so far from fighting demons, small demons and whatnot, and not believing in angels to, hey, these are our hookups in the back seat. It's a demon and an angel. Cool.
Yeah, the four of them in the car is really a lot.
Yeah, I wish we'd gotten more time of that scene because I
feel like any time on Supernatural that there's a full car, you know it's a good scene.
Yeah.
And it's usually awkward because usually at least one person doesn't want to be there. In this case, I think that one person is probably
Sam.
Yep.
Sam's like, I actually kind of hate that this is happening right now.
10 out of 10 would not recommend.
This is my worst case scenario.
Yeah, because all Dean's going to do is make comments. And yeah.
And given what Dean just found out last episode.
Also, I do appreciate this is, I think, our first angel demon team up.
Yes.
Together.
That's dope.
Which is fun.
A little bit begrudgingly, but still doing it.
Yeah. And an interesting thing lore-wise, because the narrative is forcing people who should be on opposite sides to be working together because the Winchesters are choosing some other option. Like the Winchesters are like, yeah, we don't really want to do what hell wants us to do, but we also don't really want to do what heaven wants us to do because what heaven wants us to do also seems bad.
We're going to find a middle path.
Yeah. I remember the first time I watched this episode being like, it felt like the power escalation was really intense. It was like, oh God, like we really went from like, a little demon on an airplane to the forces of, as the episode calls it, heaven and hell, literally duking it out in a barn.
Yeah.
I also think in terms of faith, it's interesting they choose to have faith in Ruby, like collectively.
Yeah.
Specifically, like that's significant for Dean and for Anna, but for Dean's most significantly. Last episode we saw him kind of begrudgingly ally himself with Ruby and like begrudgingly be like, I guess it's good that you managed to keep Sam alive while I was dead. And now he's just they fully are putting their faith in her to like execute this plan and not sell them out to Alistair.
She gives him a hex bag and he doesn't check it or anything before. He just trusts her and it has like a look of respect on his face. He's come a long way.
Noah, I'm curious where your thoughts are on Ruby and Ruby's motives at this point.
Okay, see, both of y'all just did a face. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
I already said last episode that I'm still sus of Ruby, but Dean is letting his guard down. I'm still suspicious.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
That is exactly what came into my head.
I'm so glad.
This episode is just going to be full of like topical references that will make no sense to anyone in about 4 years.
But yeah, right in the next year or two, we're right in that sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah. People will be like, why are they laughing about consensual workplace relationships? I don't get it.
Don't worry, we'll link something in the episode description if you don't know what that is, what we're referring to. But yeah, what were you saying, Ren?
Ruby, I was just saying Ruby comes through, like talking about if she's trustworthy or not, like who knows, but she comes through in this episode in a big way.
She really does.
Which is impressive.
Yeah. And defies Alistair, who we know she's terrified of.
Yeah.
Because like last episode, she was like advising.
Right.
What was the note that you had in the document? Practically the Grand Inquisitor downstairs, Picasso with a razor. Like, ooh.
Yeah. Noah, that's also a big reveal in this episode is who Alistair actually is and how he knows Dean. Thoughts, predictions,
feelings?
I mean, he's just the big major face of Dean's trauma in hell. So if there's ever a physical representation for Dean to punch to get some frustrations out on, that's the move. He needs to just go to town, release some of these demons he's held back. Don't like Alistair.
No.
I have no comment on that. None at all.
Speaking of Alistair has a line that I wanted to talk about where he says to Cass, like towards the end, he says, why don't you go run to daddy? Which I think is really interesting because we got established by Anna that the angels have not met God, that only 4 angels have met God. But why don't you go run to daddy is so interesting to me because Alistair is like taunting them. Like it makes me wonder if Alistair sort of also knows that the angels are not as close to God as maybe they like to think.
It's using that as like a means of psychological torture on them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This doesn't have to do with anything, but I have a behind the scenes about that last scene.
Oh.
Which is just that I've just heard Jensen talk about filming it a few times, and he talks about how he like lost it when they were filming that. Like he was crying for real and he like couldn't stop himself, and the director had to like help him calm down so they could shoot it again. He had to like go on a walk like out of the set and like go walk around because he just like, he was so emotional feeling Dean's emotions that it became his own emotions, and he just like lost control of it. And he talks about how like that's one of the only times in shooting the show that happened is in this scene. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Gives his all in that scene. Oh my God.
you can tell like it's so good.
Yeah, his
Devastating.
crying is really visceral in that scene.
And
Yeah.
it's messy. Like, I think that's one of the reasons that scene hits so hard, is like the crying and the emotion. And you can feel like Dean's struggle to get this confession out to Sam. And I think that behind the scenes info makes it makes sense, like that it feels so visceral.
It's the lack of shame that he cries with at the end that really just sells the emotion of that whole scene.
And you can tell Sam doesn't really know what to say, because what do you say to
But you
something
can
like
see
that?
him react in the background. He keeps trying to figure out what to say, but he can't. And it's phenomenal acting on his part as well. It's so raw.
I think they're just realizing the weight of not that hell wasn't just the physical like torture for Dean, but also was all of these other things because of the decisions he was forced to make. And
Yeah, it was mental, it was physical, it was spiritual, it was
Emotional.
all across the board.
yeah,
Like,
and I think now we're finally understanding why Dean's having these flashbacks, why he's so different now that he's been raised, and why he's struggling so much with the concept that like the angels raised him for some heavenly God related purpose. Like it makes sense that he's struggling so much because we know that like the way demons get made is by like souls tortured in hell eventually become demons. Given what Dean's been through, now him being used for heaven is just, you can see why he's having a really believing that.
Really.
well, yeah, and because not even 2 episodes ago at the end, he admitted to Sam, like, yeah, I remember it, but I'm not talking about it. He made it very clear at the end of Wishful Thinking that he did not want to speak on his time in
Can't.
hell.
It's too painful for him.
And so for him to open up, I think in that moment is extraordinarily brave of him.
Mhm.
And it makes a lot of sense why he reacts that way. And it breaks my heart to know that Jensen was like in that moment, really, really in that. He's so Dean coded, it hurts.
You really like implanted on that character
Mhm.
in a way
Yeah.
that makes it feel so authentic, I think, because he's really
Yeah.
tapped into that emotion through this whole episode too. I think this whole episode taps into that. I mean, Anna is the one that says to him,
I know what happened.
Mhm.
And he says, I can't talk about that, in a really vulnerable way as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
She says, you should forgive yourself for what you did down there.
And then she tells him, like, I know you can't talk about it, but when you're ready, like, there are people who want to help.
And she knows she means Sam and Bobby. She's there too, but like she knows that he's going to go to Sam and Bobby.
It's not about her. And I
Yeah.
really love that in that moment, she knows it's not her and she doesn't push for that. She goes, you have people.
Mhm.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Which
It's
is a beautiful, I don't know, it's a really beautiful message in general. I remember watching this when I first watched Supernatural. I was not in a great mental or physical state myself. I was not in a very safe sort of environment. And that message of, you have people that want to help when you're ready to talk, that message is a really powerful message. And it still feels like a really powerful, needed message for those of us who watch this show who have gone through trauma or who have had to like make choices about how to survive in impossible circumstances. I think that message of you have people.
know that you're not going through any of what you're going through alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, that too. Though whenever you're ready, like when you're ready, you've got people in your
Yeah,
corner.
she gives him that space.
All that lovely to say about Anna. She's great. But she does one thing in this episode that is unforgivable.
I know what we're going to talk about here.
Oh, okay, Noah, please tell me you're going to say what I think you're going to say.
Not
Go ahead.
only does she take Dean's interspecies virginity, she takes that moment away from Cass. But now we know
Yep.
Dean was kind of using it to play it out, see if angels could, and now he knows. Now he can. Okay, but not only that, she kisses Dean in front of Cass just to rub it in, just because she knew. Because Uriel knows that Cass has a weak spot, and that weak spot is Dean. So
You
if
see,
everybody
he likes you, not like
likes you,
like, not just like he likes you.
could they get any more clear? Could they?
Insane. This is like Cass has been around for like it's barely 2 months since
Barely.
the events of Lazarus Rising.
And he's head over heels.
No,
And then
you know what?
somebody
You did.
jumps in and makes out with him right in front. Oh, the pain when he looks away.
The unforgivable moment with Anna for me is that she puts her hand.
That is
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah, I knew that's what you were saying.
no.
Now
She can have
see,
sex with him all she wants. She can put her hands literally anywhere else on that boy's body, but that is Cass.
I will say,
that shoulder belongs to
The way they
Castiel.
do the way they do that shot too, like the slow panning over his shoulder, and like you give her face, you get her like kind of like almost Cass-like expression of like kind of the head tilt, and then and it's just why
Listen.
that choice?
Cas called dibs, and I hate that it was disrespected.
it can't be a coincidence that that's how the handprint perfectly lines up with the sex position. He was planning ahead. Okay.
The implications that had never occurred to me.
Because if you look at the handprint, it lines up perfectly if you're right in front of the person.
I am unwell.
Does not work for a great carry pose. It's a brand.
It's okay. The thing is, I really like the way they do Dean and Anna's relationship. I think it's really interesting. I think that they get to explore some themes that are really important for both Dean and for Anna, and ultimately some themes that are really important for Cass. So like I have seen some people in the fandom be really nasty about Anna, and I like want to fight them because I think she's also this example to Cass. Like she is the prototype for an angel rebelling and like falling for a human and like all of these.
Specifically that human.
And I think that Anna and Dean does not negate Cass and Dean.
No, I do very much enjoy Anna as a character and how she influences both Dean and Cass. But like without her, they probably wouldn't have ended up in the same way because she gives them both confidence that it could be possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anna, and that's the other thing that I think that folks in the fandom who are very fixated on Dean and Cass, like don't get me wrong, like literally my username on TikTok is Desti Elayna. I am not saying that I don't ship those two, but it reads a little bit like bi erasure because it's like, oh, well, Dean could never have had feelings for Anna. Like, yes, he could.
100%.
And that was an entirely valid relationship in the window in which it took place in. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have those feelings for Cass and that he'll never have those feelings for Cass. Like, it's always read very weird to me when there's people who are like, I hate Anna. Like, I can get it if you're not a huge fan of her, but it comes off as a little misogynistic and I don't enjoy it.
Especially, and like, I think a lot of the reasons people really love Cass, especially as we go along, is seeing how he wrestles through the concepts of like free will that he's already starting to question. And he's already expressed to Dean that he has questions, he has doubt.
Well, people say all the time that like Cass invented free will. Like, no.
Honey, Anna was there.
Anna ran so that Cass could fly. And I don't appreciate the Anna erasure.
Yeah. I think that she is such an interesting look at an angel. Like if Cass is learning free will from Dean, Anna learned it from herself. Like Anna got there. Anna started that like by just her own choices. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really cool. And I think also it's interesting in the narrative that they use Anna's story to start to like unravel that. And even when you go like with some of the writing in the filming, Cass and Anna's arcs were supposed to be flipped. Like they're supposed to have some of each other's storylines. And part of the reason Cass ends up with some of the future storylines and some of the more explorations of those themes, which I'm trying to say in as subtle a way as possible so I don't give away spoilers. But some of the storylines that Cass ends up with are ones that were going to be Anna's because Cass ended up being so compelling of a character to explore them with. And I just think that's kind of cool.
Props to Misha Collins and Jensen Ackles for reading the script and deciding, oh yeah, clearly these two boys are in love. Clearly. Yep. And that's how they act it every single time.
And this episode also features my favorite example of the supernatural motif of the editors doing the Lord's work because of the way that it cuts to Cass when she kisses him. Like
The
somebody in
cuts
that
back.
editing room knew what they were doing.
Exactly. They look away, the dramatic. It's beautiful.
Top tier.
Top tier.
I also would like to point out this is my final note. I would like to point out one line when Anna says, last night on Earth, as a way of hitting on Dean. And he says, you're stealing my best line. And I would just like Noah to remember this moment.
Embedded in your brain. No reason at all.
And that's it.
Just because it's
That's all.
okay.
Just because it's a good, I just want you to remember that line for later.
Remember it for science.
Yes, research purposes, of course.
No other reason whatsoever.
Nope. Okie dokie. Next, we can slide on into our going meta section where we are tracking lore, representation, behind the scenes trivia, and more. Rep check. What have we got this week, guys?
I mean, it's our second episode in a row with a sex scene.
Interspecies sex scene, no less.
Yes.
We had the dark side, now we got the light side.
Which the filming of the way they do both those scenes is very interesting.
They're sending some signals.
Yeah.
Sam chose a bed. Dean chose the Impala.
The positioning is, I appreciate the positioning again. They don't.
Dean's a bottom supremacy.
Yeah, it's they're not going with necessarily what the super heteronormative like expectation would be in terms of Dean and Anna, which is nice.
It's powerful.
Indeed. And we have 3 named women that speak this episode.
Or
Ruby.
4? Ruby, Anna, Pamela.
Oh, sorry, yeah, 3. Why was I thinking there was another one? 3.
Yeah. And they're all kind of badasses in their own right, which is nice. But I don't think any of them ever talk to each other, do they?
Pamela talks to Anna.
Do they talk? Actually, I think we might pass the Bechdel today.
Do we?
I think so, because they go in and
If we count the
but
hypnotism as a conversation.
I think yeah.
It's like a tentative pass.
Do they talk outside of her hypnotizing her?
when she wakes up, I think.
Very briefly when she's like getting introduced and like walking away with Anna.
Off screen they talk.
It's
I don't think so.
no, it's a shaky pass.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about some of these elements already.
Yeah.
We definitely got into relationship dynamics during our main discussion, I feel.
Yeah, we went pretty heavy.
In my notes for this. Also that line.
Oh yeah,
Do we wanna talk about
let's talk about that because I think it's interesting.
It's
It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's so bad.
It's the beginning of a bad trend.
Yeah. So Dean says to Uriel, I believe.
Yeah, it's Uriel.
That he is, quote, junkless like a Ken doll.
Ugh, I hate that. I hate it when they say that.
I hate that so much. It's a visceral cringe every time. But I thought we should talk about it.
The idea that, angels are in vessels. We've got that established. So that's not true. And the idea that like angels are not it, like I think it's sort of being used as shorthand for like angels aren't interested in sex, but that is why would they be like it's just also
It's
like,
unnecessary
and emasculate. It's meant to be emasculating in a way that's really gross.
With this creature that's immensely powerful. And I go, okay, chill.
Yeah, like I don't think he can smite entire towns. I don't think hookups are he's worried about. Just doesn't seem like even a thing.
Yeah, and obviously like even the implication that like not being interested in sex is a bad thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like why?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the obnoxious heteronormativity of some of the supernatural writers really shows its ugly head, is when they mention shit like that.
And unfortunately, this very specific joke is going to come back. It's going to be a recurring way of like certain characters, not just Dean, other characters as well, like referring to angels.
And unfortunately, not even just characters, but the cast has used this phrase in some certain interviews that have been really, really gross.
And been very frankly quite homophobic as well. It's been used as an excuse for homophobia to be like, well, in the show, like angels don't have dicks. And you're like, that's
literally not how any of that works.
Canonically true, and B, also kind of homophobic. What I mean, if you're using that as an argument for like them not wanting relationships or not being sexual beings in any way, like that.
Yeah, I too, I have a very visceral reaction every time they say that, because I'm like, this is just uncalled for
Mhm.
at every level.
Yeah, it's disappointing. You're like, seriously, we're stooping to that level here? Like, why? It's not necessary.
Especially because it's coming from Dean.
Yeah.
Like,
It's always frustrating when you get those like characterizations that don't feel like they fit with everything else about who the character is. They
Or
they
how-
come across as really jarring.
Yeah, because I think like that's originally how they wrote Dean, is very like kind of a misogynistic guy and kind of a dick. But I think the way that Jensen played him with like more complexity than that
Yeah.
changed the writing.
Yeah.
And so, but every now and then we still see these gross signs of it where they're like, that's the like stereotype of type of person that the character's written to be. I don't know.
This
Does that
like
make sense?
bro-y, like ultra, like quote unquote masculine dude that's like, you know, obsessed with like one-upping other dudes and like sex and objectification and all of those things. And like when they lean back into that for lines like this, it doesn't work with the rest of the way Jensen plays the character. And so it's really frustrating to see.
It's also really funny to me too, because they're like, oh, Dean is the quintessential macho, manly man. Like, and that's like how they try to paint him. But literally, he's named after a bisexual person, not like in canon, but like Eric Kripke named him after the character from On the Road who is bisexual. So it's like, sir.
And also in canon, he's named after his grandmother. So
So it's like, whether you're in canon or out of canon, this characterization does not work for you, boy.
like met in on both, to textual level and the meta level. Like this sort of attitude is
Weird.
counter to other things the show is doing. And it's gross that they do these throwaway lines and they're supposed to be comedy. And I think that's what frustrates me, is like they're supposed to be like this comedic, and it's supposed to be this weird. I'm like, we have plenty of reasons to be mad at Uriel right now.
Yeah.
We don't need
To like it comes across the same way. I mean, because it is the same way like any joke about appearance comes across as you're like, I don't care if someone is a jerk. You don't like, if someone's a jerk, you can just like call them out on being a jerk. If your way of calling them out for being a jerk is like making fun of their appearance, like, guess what? You're just also now a jerk.
Yeah.
And that's how this one reads, is they couldn't come up with a better insult. And
It's obnoxious. Not
unnecessary.
Noah, you said you had a point you wanted to make for lore. Curious what that was.
So get this. I was looking into the lore for this episode, and I thought it was very interesting that 4 angels have seen the face of God. Only 4 in the course of history is baffling. Comes back to the question I had last episode with Abigail about how many angels there are in existence. Because if there's 600 seals, like what if there's clearly can't be 600 of them. Otherwise they could just guard all 600 seals. Like whatever. Okay. Yeah, we went over that. But only 4 of them have been important enough to be able to see God. And from my upbringing in Christianity, social Sunday school, Michael and Gabriel are like the 2 main highest angels, right? So those 2 make sense that they would have been able to see God's face. I would say Lucifer is the 3rd one, because he was one of the top angels before he fell.
based on that argument,
Uriel is another one that would be on like the list, but they already stated it wasn't him. So I have no idea who the 4th is, but do they ever clarify that?
Yes.
Yes.
All we can say is that is a lore fact that is consistent with future canon.
Because I also know for a fact that God shows up in the show, and so more people see his face. So it's going to be a lot more.
At this point, but at this point, it's 4, and we will eventually get information about which 4, why that is the case.
Are those 3 accurate?
We can't confirm nor deny the accuracy of your prediction.
But yeah, there will be answers, and it will be significant to the storyline. So this is a lore drop that's a good one.
Your questions will not go unanswered. We promise.
Good. Other things relating to lore, we already went over, angel and human sexual relations possible. It's fine. We don't need to dive back into that.
We also know that angels are in vessels, which, I mean, it's the same thing with demons. It's like, we don't know if like angel and human sex is possible when
in
an
their
angel's
raw
not.
form.
We can assume that probably not, because if you look at an angel angel, you're burnout. So like most people
and if
probably
you
can't.
hear them talking, your ears bleed and glass breaks. That just doesn't sound like a good night in bed at all.
No.
But when an angel is contained by a human vessel,
Totally
Well,
fine.
yeah, she doesn't have her grace. So the question, we still do have the outstanding question
That's
of
true.
an angel with their grace.
In a vessel.
When the angels are travel sized for your convenience.
Fun size.
Fun size, yes. Fun sized angels.
Comparatively, that actually works.
Yeah.
Fun sizing.
I keep wanting to say the quote about it, and I know that you two know which quote I'm talking about. About the size of angels.
Yeah.
But I can't say it because
nothing else that hasn't come up in recent episodes. We got a little bit more information that like heaven works like battalions and things like that.
garrisons and whatnot.
Yeah, like we're getting a military vibe from heaven, even more so based on this episode. We already kind of had that in 407, but that about does it for lore. And we've already talked about some behind the scenes stuff, but there's a couple of fun pop culture things. This episode is named after a Black Sabbath song.
Ooh,
which is fun.
That's not bad. Black Sabbath. You mentioned the Roma Downey one earlier with the bong rip.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And my favorite episode, my favorite reference of this episode, which is when Ruby is talking about how heaven wants Anna, and they're like, and she's like, hell just wants her flesh and blood angel. Sister, you're the Stanley Cup, which is a hockey reference in Supernatural.
what a time to be alive.
It's funny because I was on Driver Picks the podcast, which is like our sister podcast with Jamie and Beth for this episode. And neither of them, they're Australian. And so neither of them, like the Stanley Cup is not really well known as a sports thing there because hockey is much more of a North American European thing. Not that hockey doesn't exist in Australia, but just, we had a very fun conversation about the fact that this reference is very specific and like for like one of the, I
bet there's a lot of references that are American and North American culture that they don't get, but that one a lot of Americans might not get because they're not as big hockey fans as Canadians. And
how do people not know what the Stanley Cup is if you're from the US?
There's a lot of people down here.
Americans who don't, and
that's surprising to me because I don't care at all about hockey.
You're in a hockey city, Elayna.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
In a city with
and we have Gritty. That's all my knowledge of hockey ends at Gritty.
I just needed to put it out because as the resident Canadian host on this show, that whenever they make a very Canadian sort of reference, I think it's really fun. And I find it really funny that Ruby, of all the sports trophies, goes with Stanley Cup. Okay, sure.
I wonder if that was like an improv line or if that was like the writer of this episode is really into hockey. Like, I want to know where that came from.
So Sarah Gamble? Oh no, sorry, Kripke. This one's not Sarah Gamble. Sarah Gamble was the last episode.
Kripke wrote this one?
Kripke wrote this one.
Ooh.
And Kripke and Trevor Sands wrote this one.
Kripke, honey.
So, anyway, I like that reference. It's funny.
It's a good one.
My Canadian card would get taken away if I didn't mention it.
Canadian.
I missed it completely, so I lost mine.
Sorry, Renny. It's okay. It's the one sports thing that I know things about. It's the one sport that I can be like, I know what that means. Whenever there are sports references in Supernatural in general, I usually miss them. So anyone else have pop culture or other things
And so now, as we bring this episode to a close, it is time for our blessings. And I'm really curious to hear who everybody's got for this week.
Can I bless Anna?
Yes, you can.
Multiple people can bless Anna, but I realized I didn't talk about how Anna, when I first watched this episode in my young years, I was like, wow, I might not be straight. And this was a key moment in my discovery of that fact, was last episode and this episode. What are you doing?
4 times you've mentioned how hot Anna is.
I feel like I haven't talked about it that much.
I know, it's only 4. What
So
was
I've only
that?
talked about it 4 times. Anna's really hot. That's not really a blessing. So let's see if I can turn this into
The blessing is Anna. Anna is the blessing.
Anna is the blessing that, thank you for helping me realize that thing about myself. Blessing for that. I'm going to let someone else take the real blessings of this
Wait,
episode.
we got to shout out who plays Anna.
Julie McIvan.
Yeah, you got to shout her out.
Yeah. Okay. Someone else go, please.
Well, my blessing is going to be for Cass because my boy got it rough this episode and he's just trying to be happy and figure out what that means for him. And he just got some hope, but in the face of that hope, he got a lot of hurt. So I wish him all the best going forward and strength with Cass.
Love that. I'm gonna bless Dean because it's the most heartbreaking scene. Like every time I think about that scene at the end of this one, I just feel a little piece of my soul break off and drift into the abyss because it's just so sad. And it's just going to be like, even though I know what happens, whenever I get to this point in like a rewatch, it always hits me so hard that like Dean really doesn't think he's redeemable anymore. And he had such a low opinion of himself before his trip to hell. And so to have had that happen to him and then come back and have to wrestle with all of this, I would not wish that on anyone, let alone my very favorite character in fiction.
Yeah.
So blessing for Dean.
I will bless Anna also.
I love that.
I agree that she's hot. So
Yes.
that's part of it. She brings some good visuals to the show, but also for her bravery in choosing humanity, like initially, I think is really cool for kind of introducing the idea of free will, for how she is like supportive to Dean and like what we were talking about, like gives him that space to be not okay. And yeah, just like I think she's a really key character in the show. And I just really appreciate what she brings for Dean and for Cass and for Sam too.
Her impact is very long lasting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Well, that is all we have for you today for this episode. So thank you all for being here and listening to us talk about this. Thank you, Renny, for being here again as our guest.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. It was so much fun.
It's always fun.
Always a
love having
blast.
you.
Come back anytime.
Hey, I will.
You can make sure you are subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can find links to all of our social media and join our Discord server through our website, queeringthingspodcast.com.
Be sure to ride along with us next week as we discover episode 11, Family Remains, through the theme of temptation.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.